We all know the image, right? The wild hair, that really intense gaze, and the name. Einstein. Just means genius.
Absolutely, it's iconic.
But what if we told you that behind that image, there was a guy once considered, well, average as a student, and apparently slow to speak, and he even admitted to making what he called his biggest blunder.
It's true. And today, our deep dive isn't just going to be about, the science everyone knows, EMC squared and all that.
Right.
We're actually going to explore the complex human being behind it all.
Right.
Surprising, sometimes contradictory.
Exactly. Our mission here is to get you past the textbook version. We want to really get into the mind, the life of this towering figure. Show you some things that might genuinely surprise you.
Yeah. We've pulled together information from quite a few places, detailed biographies, scientific analyses, even his own private travel diaries.
So we're hoping to give you a shortcut, a really well-rounded picture of Einstein. Okay, let's unpack this. So maybe let's start right at the beginning. Peel back those layers. Who was the young Albert Einstein, before the equations?
Well, he was born in Ulm, Germany. That was March 14th, 1879. His family was secular Jewish.
Okay.
His father, Hermann, was an engineer, and he really encouraged Albert's interest in science. And his mother, Pauline, she was a talented pianist, so she fostered his love for music.
So science and music right from the start.
Pretty much. He also had one younger sister, Maja. They were quite close.
And I read the family moved around quite a bit because of his father's business.
That's right, yeah. His father's electrical engineering business struggled, so they moved from Munich, then to Milan, then Pavia in Italy. So yeah, quite a bit of upheaval in those early years.
Not exactly stable.
No. And speaking of early life, one of the really surprising things is that he was slow to speak. Didn't really talk until he was at least 3.
3? Wow.
Yeah. And some people think this actually led him to prefer thinking in pictures, doing these thought experiments, rather than using words. It might have shaped how he visualized physics later on.
That makes a strange kind of sense, actually, because we think of him as this super intellect, but he was seen as just an average student back then.
In many ways, yes. He found the traditional school subjects pretty dull, apparently. Really didn't like the rigid teaching methods. By most accounts, he wasn't outstanding at all.
Except
in math. That was his passion. He basically taught himself algebra and advanced geometry by age 12.
12.
And by 14, he'd mastered calculus, integral, and differential, often way ahead of his tutor, a guy named Max Talmud. This self-driven learning, it's a really early sign of his independent mind.
And the music stuck with him too, right? The violin.
Oh, absolutely. Started at age 5, influenced by his mother. He kept playing almost his whole life. He even said once, if I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician.
That really highlights a different side of him, doesn't it? More artistic, intuitive.
Definitely. But school was still a struggle. He actually dropped out at 16.
Just dropped out.
Yep. Rebelled against the authoritarian teachers, the rote learning. He couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
And then he failed the entrance exam for the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich the first time he took it.
He failed. Einstein.
Well, not in physics or math. He aced those.
Yeah.
But his marks in the non-science subjects were too low. He had to take more courses and then got in when he was 17.
So even then, the standard system didn't quite fit him.
Not at all. And another big decision around that time. At 17, he renounced his German citizenship.
Why did you do that?
To avoid mandatory military service. He was deeply pacifist, even then. So for a while, until he got Swiss citizenship in 1901, he was actually stateless, a man without a country.
Wow. That early conviction is really striking. So that struggle, that independence, it really paved the way for what came next, didn't it? Even after graduating, it wasn't easy.
Not at all. He graduated from the Polytechnic in 1900, but then he couldn't find a teaching job for like a year and a half.
Really? With that mind.
Yeah. It shows the challenges, right? Being outside the mainstream. He finally landed a job as a patent examiner. Assistant examiner, technically, at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern, starting in 1903.
A patent clerk.
Exactly. And that job, looking at electrical, mechanical inventions day in, day out, people think that actually helped his own research, made him think about time, signals, mechanics in a very practical way.
All while working 6 days a week to support his family.
Right. And somehow, amidst all that, he was nurturing these revolutionary ideas. He even started a little discussion group with friends, the Olympia Academy, talking science and philosophy.
And then came 1905, the Annus Mirabilis. the miracle year.
Unbelievable, isn't it? He's 26, working as a patent clerk, totally outside the academic world, and he publishes 4 papers in the Annalen der Physik. 4 papers that just turn physics upside down.
Okay, let's break those down. What was the first one?
So first, the photoelectric effect. He explained that light isn't just a wave, it's also made of particles. Photons, we call them now.
And that's what eventually won him the Nobel Prize, right?
Yeah.
In 1921.
That's the one. But what's fascinating is, when he gave his Nobel acceptance speech, he didn't talk about the photoelectric effect. He talked about relativity.
Seriously?
Yeah, it shows you where his real passion, his conviction lay. Even getting the biggest prize in physics, he was focused on his grander theory.
Okay, so that was one. What else in 1905?
Then there was his work on Brownian motion. That paper gave really convincing evidence that atoms and molecules actually exist.
Which was still debated back then.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-uh.
This paper was hugely influential. It became his most cited paper, actually. And it helped explain stuff like, why the sky is blue. It really solidified atomic theory.
Amazing. Okay, 2 down.
Third, mass energy equivalence, EMCR, the famous one.
The equation everyone knows, even if they don't know what it means.
Oh, right. It basically showed that energy and matter are interchangeable, that even a tiny bit of mass holds an enormous amount of energy. Think nuclear reactions.
And it explained how stars shine, didn't it?
Exactly. Answer that fundamental question.
Okay, and the 4th paper, the really big one.
Special theory of relativity. This was the mind bender. It fundamentally changed how we understand space and time.
How so?
Well, it resolved this conflict between Newton's ideas about motion and Maxwell's theory about electromagnetism, which said the speed of light is constant. Einstein said, okay, the speed of light is constant no matter how you're moving. But that means space and time themselves aren't absolute. They're relative to the observer.
Right, the famous thought experiment with the train and the light signals.
That's the one. Events that look simultaneous to someone on the platform might not be for someone on the moving train. Time stretches, space contracts, depending on your motion.
It introduced time as like a 4th dimension, part of space-time.
Precisely. And it established that nothing can travel faster than light, the ultimate cosmic speed limit.
So it didn't make Newton wrong, exactly, just incomplete.
Exactly. Newtonian physics works fine for everyday speeds, stuff much slower than light. Relativity just gave us the bigger picture. It expanded our universe.
How did the scientific world react? Was it instant acclaim?
Oh, not at all. Largely ignored at first. I mean, he was just a patent clerk, right?
Yeah.
Not some university professor. Max Planck, a really big name in physics then, was one of the first to see how important it was. He really championed Einstein's ideas.
So that miracle year was just the start. He built on that, didn't he? Spent the next decade on something even bigger.
He did. 10 years of incredibly hard work leading to the general theory of relativity, published in 1915. This is often seen as his absolute masterpiece.
Okay, so special relativity dealt with constant motion. What did general relativity add?
Gravity. He redefined gravity completely. It's not a force pulling things together like Newton thought. It's the curvature of space-time itself, caused by mass and energy.
The fabric analogy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine space-time as a stretched sheet. Put a heavy ball like a planet on it, and it creates a dip, a curve. Other objects moving nearby follow that curve. That's gravity.
Wow, elegant.
Incredibly elegant. And it wasn't just theory, it made predictions. It perfectly explained the weird orbit of Mercury, which had puzzled astronomers for ages using Newton's laws.
Right, that was a big confirmation.
Huge. And it also predicted things like gravitational waves, ripples in that space-time fabric, which, amazingly, were finally detected a century later, in 2015, 2016.
Just incredible.
Right.
100 years later.
Yeah. His theory also laid the groundwork for understanding black holes, these points, where gravity is so intense that nothing, not even light, can get out.
And we actually got images of one recently, didn't we? In 2019.
It did. And it looked pretty much like the theory predicted. Just shows how profound his insights were.
But he also had what he called his biggest blunder related to general relativity, right?
Oh.
The cosmological constant.
Ah, yes. Well, back then, everyone assumed the universe was static, unchanging. So Einstein added this cosmological constant term to his equations to kind of hold the universe still, mathematically.
To fit the prevailing idea.
Right. But then, in 1929, Edwin Hubble discovered the universe is actually expanding. So Einstein realized his constant wasn't needed, and he apparently called it his biggest blunder.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Even the blunder shows him adapting to new evidence.
Exactly. It shows scientific humility, in a way. He wasn't afraid to admit he might have been wrong when the facts changed. Though, funnily enough, the cosmological constant has actually made a comeback in modern cosmology to explain dark energy.
Huh. So maybe not such a blunder after all.
Perhaps not. Anyway, the big moment for general relativity's acceptance came in 1919.
The solar eclipse.
Yes, Arthur Eddington led expeditions to observe stars near the sun during a total solar eclipse. They found the starlight was bent by the sun's gravity, just as Einstein's theory predicted.
And that made him famous, like, overnight.
Pretty much. Newspapers went wild. Scientific revolution. New theory of the universe. He became an international celebrity almost instantly.
That must have been surreal for a theoretical physicist. What did he say when it was confirmed?
Well, famously, someone asked him what he'd have said if Eddington's results hadn't confirmed the theory. And Einstein apparently replied, "Then I would have been sorry for the dear Lord. The theory is correct."
Wow, that's confidence.
Or maybe just deep conviction in the math. After that, he started doing world tours. New York in 1921, Japan, Singapore, India, Palestine, South America. Greeted by huge crowds, dignitaries. He was a global phenomenon.
Although I read his private travel diaries from that time showed a maybe less flattering side, some quite unfiltered, even xenophobic comments.
Yes, that's true. It's a difficult aspect. It reminds you that even great minds are products of their time and can hold personal biases that seem jarring to us now. It adds complexity to the picture, doesn't it?
It definitely does. And during the 20s, he was also debating quantum theory with people like Niels Bohr, right, at places like the Solvay
Oh,
conference.
yes. Those debates were legendary,
Yeah.
especially at Solvay. I mean, you look at the photos, 17 of the 29 people there eventually won Nobel Prizes. It was the absolute pinnacle of physics at the time, and Einstein was right in the thick of it, questioning the weirdness of quantum mechanics.
But then things got darker politically. The rise of Nazism in Germany.
Yes, that had a huge impact on him.
Yeah.
He was visiting the U.S. in 1933 when Hitler came to power. He decided not to go back. He renounced his German citizenship again.
Again.
Yes. The first time was to avoid military service. This time, it was in protest against the Nazi regime. They actually searched his apartment back in Germany, confiscated things, and even put his picture in magazines with captions like, "Not yet hanged."
Chilling.
Absolutely terrifying. So he stayed in the U.S. He took up a position at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey, and that's where he spent the rest of his career, the longest part of it, actually.
And what was his focus then in Princeton?
His main focus in his later years was the unified field theory. He was trying to find one single mathematical framework that could describe all the fundamental forces of nature, gravity, electromagnetism, the nuclear forces.
The ultimate theory of everything.
Pretty much. But he never achieved it. He spent decades on it, but it remained elusive. Some argue he became a bit isolated scientifically, that his methods, which work so well for relativity, weren't quite suited for the new challenges, especially in quantum physics.
So even Einstein had his limits, or maybe the problems just got harder.
Maybe a bit of both. But let's talk about the man himself, beyond the science. His personal life was, well, complicated seems like an understatement.
Right. His first marriage, to Mileva Maric, she was a physicist too, wasn't she? A fellow student.
She was, yes, a Serbian physicist he met at the Polytechnic. They married in 1903, apparently against his parents' wishes.
And they had children.
They did, but first they had a daughter, Liesl, born in 1902, before they got married.
And what happened to her? I've heard different things.
Her fate is actually unknown. It's one of the mysteries of his life. Some think she died young, maybe scarlet fever. Others suggest she might have been given up for adoption. We just don't know for sure.
That's incredibly sad.
It is. They later had two sons, Hans Albert, who grew up to be a successful hydraulic engineer, and Edward, nicknamed Tet.
And their marriage, Albert and Mileva's, was it happy?
It seems it was difficult.
Yeah.
Very strained. They eventually divorced in 1919. Mileva apparently had a breakdown around that time. And as part of the divorce settlement, Einstein agreed that if you ever won the Nobel Prize, the money would go to her.
Which he did just 2 years later.
Right. And the same year they divorced, 1919, he married his cousin, Elsa Lowenthal.
His cousin?
Yes.
Yeah.
She passed away in 1936. And letters that came out later showed he had close relationships with at least 6 other women after Elsa died. So, yeah, complex personal life.
It sounds like his family life was quite strained overall. The sons lived with Mileva after the separation.
Yes. And tragically, the younger son, Edward, later developed schizophrenia and spent much of his adult life institutionalized. Einstein's relationship with his son seems to have been quite difficult, particularly after the divorce.
It really paints a picture of someone whose intense focus on his work perhaps came at a real personal cost to his family.
It certainly seems that way. It adds another layer to understanding him as a whole person.
Yeah.
But moving on to his political side, his activism, he was a lifelong pacifist, wasn't he?
Deeply so. He was really disturbed by war and violence. Early on during World War I, he refused to sign this German intellectuals manifesto supporting the war effort, the Manifesto of the 93.
Right, and instead he co-wrote a counter-manifesto.
Yeah, the Manifesto to the Europeans, calling for unity to end the war. A pretty brave stance to take in Germany at that time.
Definitely. And he really hated seeing science used for destruction. Like Fritz Haber, the chemist who developed poison gas for Einstein, reportedly found that abhorrent.
Which makes his role in the atomic bomb story even more complex. The letter to Roosevelt in 1939.
Yes, that's a crucial point. He was alerted by other physicists, particularly Leo Szilard, that Nazi Germany might be trying to build an atomic bomb. They were terrified of Hitler getting that weapon first.
So Einstein, despite his pacifism, felt he had to warn the U.S. president.
Exactly. He signed a letter, drafted largely by Szilard, urging President Roosevelt to start a U.S. research program into nuclear fission.
The Einstein-Szilard letter, and that helped kickstart the Manhattan Project.
It was a key catalyst, yes. But here's the irony. Einstein himself was deliberately excluded from the Manhattan Project.
Why?
The U.S. government considered him a security risk because of his German background and his known pacifist and left-leaning political views.
Wow. The man whose equation E=mc² underpinned the whole thing was kept out of the project he helped initiate.
It's quite something. And then, after the U.S. dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, Einstein was horrified.
He expressed deep regret, didn't he?
He did. He famously said things like, "The time has come now when man must give up war. It is no longer rational." He felt a heavy moral burden, even though his direct involvement was limited to that initial letter.
Beyond pacifism, what about his other social views? He spoke out against racism in the U.S.
Yes, quite strongly for the time. He called racism America's worst disease. He famously visited Lincoln University in Pennsylvania in 1946, which was the first degree-granting historically black university. He gave a speech there, interacted with students. It showed a real commitment.
And his economic views leaned toward socialism.
They did, especially later in life. He wrote an article in 1949 called Why Socialism, where he was pretty critical of capitalism, calling it a predatory phase of human development.
He also supported Zionism, the movement for a Jewish homeland.
Yes. He was involved with the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, served on its board. And get this, in 1952, after the first president of Israel died, they actually offered Einstein the presidency.
They offered him the presidency of Israel.
It did. It was largely a ceremonial role, but still, he politely declined, said he lacked the aptitude for dealing with people in that way.
That's incredible. But his politics still attracted suspicion, didn't they? The FBI file.
Well, yeah. The FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, kept a massive file on him over 1,400 pages by the time he died. They worried about his pro-Soviet leanings, even though Einstein himself criticized the Soviet Union for suppressing individual freedom. It shows the kind of Cold War paranoia he faced.
Yet, despite all the fame and controversy, people often described him as humble.
They did. He often downplayed his own abilities, saying things like, "I have no special talents, I am only passionately curious." People who visited him in Princeton noted how modestly he lived.
And the quirky stuff. No socks.
Yes. Partly he claimed socks just always got holes in them, so he stopped wearing them. And he wasn't keen on haircuts either, hence the iconic wild hair.
So this incredibly complex, brilliant, sometimes contradictory figure, how did his life end?
He died on April 18, 1955. He was 76. The cause was an abdominal aortic aneurysm, basically a rupture in the main artery in his abdomen.
And he refused surgery.
Reportedly, yes. He felt he had lived his life and it was time to go, saying something like it was tasteless to prolong life artificially. He wanted to meet death with dignity on his own terms.
And then, the story of his brain. That's quite something.
It really is. During the autopsy, the pathologist, Dr. Thomas Harvey, removed Einstein's brain, apparently without getting explicit permission from the family beforehand.
Wow. Why?
For science. Harvey hoped that studying Einstein's brain might reveal the physical basis of his genius. Einstein's body was cremated shortly after, and his ashes were scattered secretly, according to his wishes. He didn't want a grave or monument.
So Harvey had the brain. What did they expect to find? A giant brain?
That might have been the expectation, yeah. But it wasn't bigger than average at all. It weighed about 1,230 grams, which is actually slightly less than the average adult male brain.
So size didn't matter then?
Apparently not. It wasn't about sheer volume. But later studies, looking at photos and preserved sections of the brain, did find some differences.
Like what?
Well, one area, the inferior parietal lobe, which is involved in spatial reasoning, mathematical thought, visualizing things in 3D.
Skills Einstein definitely had.
Exactly. That part of his brain was reportedly about 15% wider than average.
Okay, that's specific. Anything else?
They found he had more glial cells per neuron. Glial cells support the neurons, so maybe that suggests higher metabolic activity, more intense thinking perhaps.
Interesting.
Also a thinner cerebral cortex, but with the neurons packed more densely within it. And some unusual anatomical features like having 4 ridges or gyri on his frontal lobe instead of the usual 3, and some unique folds and connections.
What about the connections between the two halves of the brain?
The corpus callosum, that bridge between the hemispheres. Studies suggest parts of it might have been larger or better connected than average, possibly allowing for more integration between different kinds of thinking.
But these are correlations, right? Can we definitively say this anatomical feature explains his genius?
That's the crucial question, isn't it?
Mm.
It's compelling, but it's based on one brain, compared often to younger brains, and we don't know if these features were there from birth or developed over his lifetime of intense thinking. It raises that classic nature versus nurture question regarding genius. Did the brain create the genius, or did the genius shape the brain?
A fascinating puzzle. But regardless of the brain's specifics, his impact is just immense.
Undeniable. His name literally became a synonym for genius. His work completely changed physics, our whole understanding of space, time, gravity, the universe.
His theories are still fundamental today, right? For cosmology, astronomy.
Absolutely. Study gravitational waves, understanding Mercury's orbit, gravitational lensing where light bends around massive objects, and of course black holes. These are all direct consequences and confirmations of his theories. His work is still incredibly relevant.
And he mixed with other giants, too. I love the story with Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, Chaplin supposedly said to him, "They applaud me because everybody understands me, and they applaud you because nobody understands you."
Yeah. Perfect. And he had deep philosophical discussions, too, right? With Kurt Gödel at Princeton.
Yes, they were famous walking partners at the Institute, two of the most profound thinkers of the 20th century, just strolling and talking about, well, who knows what deep ideas.
And of course, Time magazine named him Person of the Century. Hard to argue with that.
Not really, no. His influence was just that profound.
So, looking back on this whole deep dive, what a journey. From this quiet kid who was slow to talk, finding refuge in math and his violin,
To a patent clerk, quietly rewriting the laws of the universe in his spare time.
then becoming this global icon, a symbol of intellect, but also a pacifist haunted by the destructive power unleashed partly by his own discoveries.
It really was a life full of these incredible contrasts and complexities, a
Mm.
testament to just relentless curiosity and sticking to his convictions, scientific and moral.
It really makes you think. Einstein famously said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And when you consider his unique brain, maybe, but also how his thought experiments, his leaps of imagination led to these revolutionary theories, what does that tell us about genius, about how breakthroughs happen?
It suggests that maybe the ability to visualize, to imagine possibilities beyond what's currently known, is just as crucial, if not more so, than just knowing facts. That unconventional thinking, driven by deep curiosity.
Maybe that's the real tea. So the question for you listening might be, what could you discover if you really let your imagination take the lead? If you allowed your curiosity to wander, even if it challenges what everyone else thinks is common sense?